Greetings and thank you for joining us at futuremoneytrends.com. I have a very special interview to you today. It's really close to my heart. Robert Kiyosaki is the author of Rich Dad, Poor Dad, #1 bestseller for personal finance of all time, teacher to many, many millions. And I have to tell you, this man is such an influence on my own life. My children play his game daily. My kids, my son was mad at me a few weeks ago. He's 7 years old. He's like, "Dad, I'm getting a job." That was him lashing out. My 6-year-old daughter goes, "But Joseph, you'll be in the rat race." My family has everything to be so thankful for this man and everything he's taught since I was a 13-year-old boy. Robert Kiyosaki, thank you for so much for everything you've done, and thank you for being on this show.
Well, thank you most importantly for teaching your kids what I taught you.
We're actually homeschooling them. That's how much we're all in on the Rich Dad Learning Program.
And you actually read, if you want to be rich and happy, don't go to school, huh?
I did, actually. That was one of the first books I've ever read from cover to cover because I actually hated reading prior to that.
Yeah. Well, that book came out in the 90s.
Yes.
I caught hell for that one. Well, because education is like a quasi-religion.
Yes.
And, today parents are busting their butt and spending all this money and, planning their kids' future to Harvard or Stanford. And
I'm writing a book, and it's going to be called "Don't Save for Retirement." So I'm like, man, that's going to piss a lot of people off. But I can't even imagine saying, "Don't go to school, want to be rich and happy."
It was a bestseller, but we had to just change the title and all that. If you want to be rich, and they took off "Don't go to school," and the backlash was just extreme.
Well, and I know you have a lot of backlash now from the conventional people, but I'm a perfect example. I honestly followed your principles and what you taught me, and it worked for me. I'm very wealthy. My kids are enjoying life. We live a free life. But I want to get into this interview.
Our success makes me the happiest. So thank
you so much, Robert.
There's plenty of money there, isn't it?
It's fun making money, as you say.
Well, what bugs me is, I don't have any money. I said, are you kidding me? You just printed $90 trillion. I mean, $9 trillion? And you haven't got any money?
Yeah.
What's wrong with you,
That's funny. Okay. Well, Robert, let's start off with the idea of retirement. I kind of think it's a failed experiment. Do you think it was a bad idea to even attempt to have this idea where you're going to work for 40, 50 years and then somehow retire off of a chunk of savings?
I think it's one of the biggest con jobs ever. I think it actually started around the last depression, which was 1929, and the way it kind of saved everybody was they came up with this thing called Social Security, and it kind of set in the mind. One of my mentors was of that era, and he says, everybody says, "Oh, good, now I don't have to worry," and that's going to set in mind. And there's four things that are going to bring down the world economy today. Number one, rising interest rates. Okay, and you're too young to remember this, but back in the Reagan era and all that, interest rates were like 22, 23%. It killed us. And so we're heading in that direction right now. Second is this trade war with China. And the reason for that is, China has the same problems we have. They have a bigger debt to GDP problem than we have. Number three is the strength of the US dollar. So as interest rates rise, the dollar gets stronger. So more people trade their euro, yen, and renminbi and all that stuff into dollars. And the stronger the dollar gets. Well, the stronger the dollar gets, the less exports we can export. So it's this double-edged sword. And the US dollar cannot operate in a vacuum. We cannot be the only strong guy left on the street. But the fourth biggest problem, which is today's problem, is retirement. The IMF just warned that state and local pensions are the biggest threat to us today. The PBGC, which is like the FDIC, the PBGC, the Central Pension Benefit Guarantee Corporation, is bankrupt. So if the next pensions collapse, PBGC can't bail you out. That's like the bank's running out of money and the FDIC can't bail it out. And CalPERS, which is the California State Employees Pension Plan, was sued by some organization for the truth, and they're $1 trillion underwater. They can't pay the retirees. And the worst state of all is Illinois. Illinois is so bankrupt, but also Spain is bankrupt. Nothing in the retirement. There's nothing in Social Security. And there's nothing, even Switzerland, their pensions are funded only to 68%. And that's a very conservative country. So that means my generation is toast. But what that means to your generation is your parents will move in with you.
Now, for the millennials, though, I don't see why they wouldn't adopt the principles of Rich Dad Poor Dad, which is really, there is sort of a movement that's like a halfway there. Like they focus on passive income. It's called FIRE, but they're kind of more like living broke. What are your thoughts of this FIRE movement?
Well, the problem with millennials is that your problems are bigger than my problems because you're going to inherit your parents' problems. And the biggest thing affecting the world today is national debt. It's going up so fast right now. So if you understand how debt affects millennials, is that the baby boomers, that wasn't just us. The World War II generation was the worst culprit of all. The greatest generation, well, they was in the worst financial condition ever. And so I kind of chuckle every time I hear, oh, the greatest generation.
We'll have to bleep you out. We can't have that go public. No, I'm just joking.
They did fight World War II, and it was a great war. But they also voted themselves in every social problem, every social benefit possible.
Yeah.
Anyway, the challenge for millennials and their kids is this debt. So think of it this way. Let's say you earn $100,000 a year, but your debt payments are $90,000 a year. So do you know what I mean? Unless the debt payments go down, the U.S. government can't move. It's now frozen. So what that means, in my opinion, is the question is, will the U.S. government go back to quantitative easing? But because today we're in QT, quantitative tightening. We pulled off $600 billion out of the economy, which is why interest rates are rising. So we have a bunch of these lunatics called academic elites, like Bernanke, Obama, Clinton's. They're out there running this economy into the ground. And then you have the other idiots like Trump out there. He's a good friend of mine, by the way. Well, he doesn't have to say the stupid things he says, you know what I mean? But politics is important, but to me, it's just a reality show run by Trump. Yeah. And the baby boomers are watching this reality show. You're in trouble. Because if you think politics actually makes a difference, it doesn't. Historically, it makes no difference if Republicans or Democrats are in control. Because you know who's in control? The Fed. The Fed. It doesn't make any difference. So there's a thing called a new normal today. And you're probably maybe too young to remember, but in 2007, Paulson and those guys actually got up and said, and I forgot who, Bush, those characters. They said, we'd like to borrow $700 billion for TARP, Troubled Asset Relief Program. That was just a show.
Yeah.
Because they don't have to ask permission. And that's what the average voter doesn't know, is today the Fed does exactly what it wants. They're not a political organization. You and I cannot vote for them. They just do exactly what they want. So that means your vote really doesn't count when it comes to money, at least. It may count for the sideshow and the entertainment possible, and all the TV stations and publications love it because they spend a lot of money on advertising. But it's a sideshow. The real thing about money takes place in back rooms and amongst the rich. And that's
Robert, on interest rates specifically, even going up a little bit could implode the economy, implode the pensions, and basically, like your book, fake, right? Like it implodes the fake economy. How high will the Fed allow interest rates to go, or will they do everything they can to suppress them much further to stop that implosion?
I don't try to outguess the Fed, because my book, Fake, starts in 1972. I was a pilot in Vietnam. I flew for the Marine Corps. And my rich dad sent me a letter in 72 while I was on the aircraft carrier. He said, Nixon took the dollar off the gold standard a few months ago, And he said, watch out, the world's going to change.
Hmm.
I didn't know what he meant, but in my book, Fake, I being the entrepreneur I am, I said, well, if gold prices are going up, maybe I ever go get some. So I was reading the maps of Vietnam, and I said, oh, there's a gold mine here.
Mhm.
There was only one problem. The NVA had overrun it 2 days earlier. So my co-pilot and I, we cut this business deal as entrepreneurs, and we flew behind enemy lines like idiots trying to buy gold. And we wind up at we fly into this village. We know we're going to get shot at any minute because the NVA is all over the place, you know. And we go up to the gold window. There's a little old Vietnamese woman sitting there like that, and I tried to buy gold at a discount. And she looked at me like I was some idiot. She goes, oh, you don't buy at discount. Gold is sold at spot. In other words, the price of gold in Vietnam is technically the same as gold all over the world. And she didn't care if I had dollars or yen or anything like that. She knew the dollar was toast. But she knew more about monetary policy than I did. And I don't think she went to college. You know what I mean? She had little red teeth, eating beetle nuts, and she was a cute little lady. And my co-pilot and I are there arguing with each other going, I thought you knew what gold was. No, I thought you did, you know. Which brought up the point. We don't know anything about gold.
Yeah, the West.
And when I'm writing in Fake, gold is God's money, which is gold is atomic number 79 and silver is 47. We have government money, which is the dollar, the yen, the euro, fiat currency, fake money. And then we have people's money, which is Bitcoin, Ethereum, and blockchain. So you have these three monetary policies fighting throughout the world today. And everybody says, well, blockchain's toast or Bitcoin's toast. And I'm not certain yet. I really think that cyber money or people's money will kick our asses eventually. So that's why I like gold.
That's interesting. In your book, Fake, you talk about fake schools and teachers and all these things. This kind of indoctrination that we've all bought into. Even though Homo sapiens, we should all be sovereign beings. So I'm curious, what's the most damaging thing you see in today's education system to children?
Well, like I said, the positioning statement under Fake is fake money, fake teachers, and fake assets. So a fake teacher is somebody who doesn't teach what they know anything about. As you may or may not know, most teachers can change subjects. They can shift from social studies to English to this, but they're not very good at it. And then where it came home to roost for me was when I was going to Vietnam. I was in flight school in Pensacola, Florida. I had pretty good teachers because they all fly. See, most teachers can't fly. Mm-hmm. Fake teachers in school. So I had pretty good teachers at Pensacola. Then I got to Camp Pendleton, California, and that was the last stage before I went into Vietnam. And my teachers changed. So the difference between a teacher that teaches you to fly and there's another thing called a teacher that teaches you how to fight. Mm. And a teacher that teaches you how to fly cannot teach you how to fight. They're two different teachers. So these guys coming in Camp Pendleton, they're like old guys, 26 years old or something, but they've been shot in shit. They've faced it. And the first message they told us, young guys, were probably 24, and they said, look, you guys, technology has changed. And what they taught you in flight school won't work today in Vietnam. So we have to change all of our strategies, tactics, the way we flew, how we flew. And it was a complete eye-opener. So to have teachers who are just back from the front line teaching us was eye-opening. So when I talk to young people who just come out of like Harvard business and all that, they haven't been to combat yet. And they've been taught by teachers who are teachers, not combat pilots. So an entrepreneur, as you know, is a combat pilot. You know what I mean? They're out there facing the Frito Banditos everybody's shooting at them. People are stabbing you in the back, lying to you, cheating. Government's trying to take your money, regulations are killing you and all this. But the school teacher doesn't know anything about that. I don't care if they're teaching at Harvard MBA. They haven't been to combat yet. So that's what I determined as a fake teacher versus a real teacher. And that was a lesson learned from my rich dad, because his story was when he was 13, his father died. So at 13, he dropped out of school to take over the family business. And where he knew about fake teachers was his teachers were his bookkeepers, accountants, attorneys, his bankers, his politicians, and all that. So at age 13, he had real teachers from the front line teaching him, not fake teachers from academia.
Mm.
So that's why the story of Rich Dad, Poor Dad is really a story of education. And after I was in the MBA program, I dropped out. I said, I'm tired of listening to fake teachers. This accounting teacher was a guy, he didn't know assets from liabilities.
So there's a lot of college degree inflation when it comes to being an employee. I know you don't advocate to be an employee, but do you think the college degree has any value left?
Please, Henry, it's a free choice.
Sure.
Nobody could hire me because I don't work for that little. I don't like being told what to do.
Yeah, it's like our mutual friend Doug Casey says, I don't mind authority, I just don't like being told what to do.
Yeah, I make more than most people will make in a lifetime in a week. You know what I mean? It's millions a week. Why would I more $85,000 a year?
Yeah.
And work for a company and pay high taxes? It just doesn't compute in the brain. So that's what you're teaching your kids. See, it may not make sense to them for now, but when they're 30 or 35, they'll be different kids.
Yeah, and it does go against the grain, so it can be difficult at times because that's not what everybody else is teaching their kids.
What happens to you when you tell other parents you're homeschooling?
Usually they think, it's so foreign, but it shouldn't be. It's very natural, actually, to.
I don't know what you're teaching them.
Yeah.
Charter schools and all that.
Oh,
a charter school in Phoenix is sold for $31 million.
Wow.
The same week the teachers had read for ed or something else.
So, Robert, what's your feeling?
This guy sells his charter school for $31 million, and the teachers are marching in the street, ed for ed, hashtag ed for ed, whatever it is. And they want to get $60,000. The entrepreneur sells for $31 million, and the school teachers are begging for $65,000. That's the world we live in today. It's education.
Yeah, different planet. Well, that's the people teaching our kids. Robert, do you see any value in a college education at this point? With the information is free online, the entrepreneurship is easier than ever with the internet. What do you see any value in a college degree?
Well, if you're going to be a doctor, a lawyer, or an employee, you got to play the game. I mean, I can't be a doctor with no college degree.
Sure.
But you can be a multimillionaire without a college degree.
Yeah.
You look at the guys who run the world today, they don't have college degrees. You look at, what's his name? Bezos has one, but Zuckerberg doesn't have one. Steve Jobs didn't have one. Henry Ford didn't have one. Thomas Edison didn't have one. What's his name? Disneyland didn't have one. So it depends on, if you're going to be an entrepreneur, you don't really need it. But you have to hire guys with college degrees, and that's the difference.
Sure. I almost think I used to miss a lot of school, and I used to get horrible grades because I just hated every second of school. And looking back, I kind of think that might have helped me because I was daydreaming all day. Were you a good student?
No, I flunked out of school so many times, it's ridiculous. And I flunked out ironically because I flunked writing, which what I do all day. I write.
Yeah.
I flunked typing because I couldn't type. And I flunked accounting. And what do I write about? Accounting. I think God protects. I'm not real religious, but I think God protects us from stupidity. If in your soul, you're not supposed to learn this stuff, God will protect you.
Robert, in your own life and the people you've met with, when you have financial independence and freedom from passive income, you have these goals in mind, this envision, but then you get there and you want a lot more. Have you ever reflected on that? Like, does it ever stop? Are you ever content with how much you have, or are you just having too much fun? Has this become a game to you?
Well, that's the word. Thanks for asking that question. In Fake, I write about spirituality. First time I ever write about it. Because I didn't learn what I learned in school. And I learned a lot via meditation, by studying spiritual books. I also learned from real teachers like Henry Ford and reading their books, Trump's books, and things like this. Just got to watch out for fake teachers. That goes for religion too. There's a lot of trash in religion. I'm not against religion, but as these Catholic priests are now just coming to mind, and they're not guys. I remember when my father was head of education, and the Catholic head of education were these two gay guys, and my father was fine with that, and So the reason I wanted to become Catholic was they could drink. They would sit down with my old man. Well, my mother was Methodist,
Uh,
and drinking was a sin.
yeah.
My father never went to Methodist church because he liked to drink. So, and so when these Catholic guys, Father Joyce and Brother Dwayne would come over, I noticed the more they drank hardcore Jim Beam,
Yeah.
the more spiritual they got. So I'd sit there, I said, I think I'll become Catholic. They seemed to have a good time. And Father, Brother Dwayne used to take me hunting and things like that. And we all knew he was gay. So it wasn't no big secret.
Yeah.
And my father says, just don't let him grab you. I said, don't worry, Dad. But my father and my mom were just okay with everything.
Sure.
I look at these murders in the synagogue in Pennsylvania and all that. And I just, I never knew what a Jew was. I didn't know what a black was because we didn't talk that way. It wasn't taught in our families. So when people say, well, Trump caused the massacre of these Jews, I'm going, I think it's what parents taught their kids. That's what I think. Hate is taught in families too, if you know what I mean.
Absolutely.
Don't trust Jews, don't trust Japanese, don't trust this. They're not Christian, they're heathens. A lot of that's taught at home. So that's why, and money is taught at home. That's why poverty persists, is because poverty is a 7-generational thing.
Yeah.
It'll take 7 years to cycle, 7 generations to cycle out. But if a child comes from a poor family, it'll take 7 generations to drain the poor thoughts out of their heads.
Yeah, that's interesting because I'm raising kids, and these kids are I'm first generation wealth, and now have the responsibility of training and teaching these kids to.
Your kids will be, odds are, probably 90% rich.
Yeah, and I'm already thinking about the 3rd and 4th generation. How do I help? Because everybody's got to have their own success, right?
I forgot that he mentioned my book. That's why I like him.
Yeah.
And he's talking about how poverty is taught at home. And that's why he said, rich dad, poor dad, because I had a rich dad, I'm a rich man. So much of it is the effect of your parents and your home environment.
Yeah.
My rich dad was pretty extreme because, like I said, he became an entrepreneur at 13, and his teachers were real teachers. So I had to listen to his real teachers, which are his bookkeepers, his bankers, real estate brokers, and all that. And my rich dad kind of filtered all the information he brought up. So it's called the BS factor. And so when I go to school, blue sky, so much blue sky in school. I'm going, holy mackerel. There's this new book out, I don't know if it's new, it's called The Coddling of the American Mind. And it talks about how our kids in college today are so weak. And this guy he's a First Amendment attorney, the freedom of speech. And his co-author is an educational psychologist. And he says our school and parents aren't teaching kids to be weak. That's why in schools now they have what you call the trigger zones. You can't say anything that would upset you.
Safe zones.
Yeah.
safe space.
I said every day somebody's pissing me off. That's called life. It's called your clients. It's called your partners. It's called your employees. It's called the tax department. Every day.
Sure.
Yeah.
Now, do you think there's opportunity? I mean, we're kind of transitioning to a freelance economy. I mean, people are being forced into entrepreneurship whether they like it or not, right?
Yeah.
I mean, hopefully they have the tools. Robert, I wanted to ask you, you have written a few books with President Trump, and I'm just curious, what were your thoughts when he announced his candidacy that day? Did you just kind of blow it off as a joke or a publicity scene, or did you think that he was going to do it?
Well, we have 2 books together. They've done very well. One was called Why We Want You to Be Rich, and it was about the demise of the poor middle class. And another book was Midas Touch, which was on entrepreneurship, why some entrepreneurs get rich and why most don't. Because, 90% of all entrepreneurs fail. So Trump and I wrote Midas Touch. Our 3rd book was going to be a Q&A from the public. But then that was in 2015. So he announced on my radio show that he planned to run for the Rich Dad radio show. He planned to run for president. That killed that book deal. Yeah. You know, people ask me what it's like, and I said, Jesus. And he's a great man, but he says things he shouldn't say. And he says
Sure.
things he doesn't need to say. Other than that, you know, I'll say it again. To me, politics is just reality TV. It's a pack of lies.
Sure.
And I don't listen to either side. I mean, I know politics is important, all that stuff, but the fact is your votes don't count. You know, because it goes back to that old saying, he who has the gold makes the rules.
Yeah.
That was Rothschild. He said, I care not who makes the rules as long as I control the money supply. And that's what
So,
the, I you know, Amschel, AMCHL, my mayor Rothschild back in the 17 or 1800s said, I care not who makes the rules
yeah.
as long as I control the nation's money. And that's why the Fed is not controlled by anybody but these guys like Rothschilds. Rothschilds are also the Fed. So if you understand that, it's the golden rule. He who has the gold makes the rules.
Yeah.
And that's why it doesn't make a difference Republicans or Democrats win, because the Fed and the rich, like the Rothschilds and the Trumps and the Bushes, run the world. And it's people like the Obamas and the Clintons, who are poor people who went to the best schools and became attorneys, who want to be like the old money guys.
Sure.
You know, so it's always about money, but nobody will ever admit that.
Robert, in closing, you're going to be speaking at the New Orleans Investment Conference. I'm good friends with most of the people that will be there tomorrow, especially Doug Casey. I'm curious, what are you going to be talking about to, this is mainly a group of gold type investors. So what's your plan to talk about tomorrow?
Well, I always talk about gold because I have millions and millions and millions in gold. But I'm going to be talking about a thing called the infinite return. And the infinite return means that once you understand an infinite return, you'll never need money. So back in 73, when I was dropping on my MBA program, I took a real estate course. And the real estate course was how you don't need money to buy real estate, and nothing down or something like that.
Sure.
I did the course and I followed the program, and I bought my first real estate course in 1973. I was 25 years old or so, you know, and I didn't need any money.
Yeah.
I just bought it with negotiation skills and a credit card. I made $25, and in the Buddhist religion, not religious again, it's called a Satori moment. And a Satori moment means it's a moment of enlightenment. You go, holy Christ, I don't need money. I don't have to play this game. And so that's what I'll be talking about. It's called an infinite ROI, but not return on investment. It's an ROI on information. We're not getting clean information today. So that's what I'll be talking at the New Orleans investment conference. But the main reason I go to it is because there are resource investment channels. You go to certain places for information on, you know, technology stocks and medical stocks and all this. The reason I like the New Orleans investment conference is because I'm a gold and silver and oil guy, commodities. So I go there to listen to the whack jobs out there, because gold and silver and oil guys, man, they're just a bunch of banditos. You know, I mean, you got to be very sharp dealing with them. I've taken 3 companies public through the Toronto Stock Exchange, and 1 silver, 1 oil, and 1 gold. And I learned more about the stock market. So people say, why don't you invest in the stock market? I said, well, I don't gamble, number 1.
Sure.
And number 2 is because I want to control the deal. I'm an insider. If you buy a stocks, bond, mutual fund, ETF, you're an outsider. As my rich dad always said to me, if you're not an insider, you're an outsider.
Yeah.
And so 99% of the investors are outsiders. So I go to the New Orleans Investment Conference and talk to guys like Doug Casey, because they're insiders. And I'd rather know the inside scoop rather than the outside BS on CNBC and Bloomberg and those guys. So in closing, the reason I go there is when it comes to resources like food, you know, avocados and things like this, I want to be an insider, because commodities will be here. Like gold will be here. Gold was here before the earth was formed, gold and silver will be here long after we're all gone. You know, avocados will always be money. guys who are making blueberries will always be rich. Guys producing, fish or water, they'll always be rich.
Yeah.
So I would rather be the resource guy because that's where I'm kind of in education. I make a lot of money in education.
Sure.
But I invest my money in resources. As my friend always says, he was a foreign exchange trader in Canada. And he says the Canadian dollar is gone. It's going to be toast. I said, so why did you move to Panama? He says, because I'm growing avocados.
Hmm.
He has thousands of acres of avocados, I said, why do you like avocados? He says, because I trust the avocado more than the Canadian dollar. Point of view.
You've taught us a lot, and you've taught so many people. Again, thank you so much for your time, Robert. Look forward to future books. Everybody, please go to his website, enroll. You can subscribe free, and then you can also become an inside member with them, as well as purchase these books. I'm telling you, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and Cash Flow Quadrant, those are the two books I always tell people, start there, and then the rest will follow.
And the next book is Fate coming out, which is a little higher level than Rich Dad, Poor Dad. But anyway, Wall Street won't like Fate. But they don't like all my other books, and the teachers don't like my books, and the stockbrokers don't like my books. That's a good sign. I'm in good company.
Well, it's an amazing life that you've helped teach others. I'm certainly appreciative of it. Robert Kiyosaki, a Rich Dad, Poor Dad author, thank you so much.
And most importantly, thanks for teaching your kids, because that changes the world.
Oh, thanks.
Thank you. Bye-bye.